Secretariat, can you hear me?
Prof, I can hear you.
Geoffrey can hear me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Just testing my audio and video settings. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, I think your video is good. I can see you very well, Geoffrey.
I can also see you, Prof, very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's very good.
Sure.
I hope the others can also join early so that we have all presenters booked in. Let me just tell them to join early.
Sure.
Rachel, are you able to hear? Rachel? Secretariat? Anybody at the Secretariat? MESP?
Yes, Prof, we are able to hear you.
Thank you for coming through. Thank you. Is it able to go live on LinkedIn?
We are live on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay. Okay. That's all right also. Okay. The YouTube link is available for sharing?
Sharing in a bit.
Okay. Welcome, colleagues. We're just waiting for everyone to join. MESP just alert the CEO that at 11, I'll probably just invite her to give her remarks. Just put her on standby kindly. Our CEO, kindly. Very well. We have 3 minutes to go to kick off. People are joining quite fast. So in 3 minutes, I'll bring in our CEO to take it away in introducing the BDCG annual conference. Just confirm, David Ojwang, are you there? I see Meshach is on board. David Ojwang? Christine? People are joining, so I'm expecting the presenters to be, let me just make a quick call to David and Christine. Raphael is joining in 2 minutes. Rachel, just have a quick check on your WhatsApp for the presentation, Raphael's presentation. There you go. It's now 11. Good morning, webinar colleagues, participants, speakers, everybody on board. Good morning. This is the BDCG seminar series that we are beginning with the first seminar series on building climate resilience and competitive agricultural market systems in Africa. Just to bring you up to speed on what the BDCG is all about and our upcoming annual conference in 2026, allow me to bring our CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the Micro Enterprise Support Program Trust. Please, our CEO, Dr. Rebecca Amukoe, take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Rewe, a representative from Pwani University, Ripple Effect, Farm Africa, IDE, and Micro Enterprises Support Program Trust, together with all our partners, stakeholders, researchers. Good morning, all. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this first webinar on building climate resilient and competitive agricultural market systems in agriculture as a build-up to our 2026 annual BDCG conference. Allow me at this juncture to thank Pwani University for convening us and for providing leadership in advancing research, innovation, and collaboration within Africa's agricultural sector. I particularly want to acknowledge Professor Rewe, whose work in integrated agrosystems, regenerative agriculture, food security, and circular bioeconomy demonstrates the value of connecting academic research with practical development solutions. His leadership in national, regional, and international research partnerships provides a strong foundation for today's discussions. I also recognize our other council members within the BDCG and my colleagues from Micro Enterprises Support Program Trust for contributing their different experiences and capabilities to this conversation. The diversity represented by these organizations, from research and farmer capacity development to inclusive finance, enterprise development, market access, and technology adoption, is precisely what is required to build agricultural systems that are both productive and resilient. Today's theme could not be more timely. Across Africa, agriculture remains central to food security, employment, trade, and rural livelihoods. Yet our agricultural systems are increasingly affected by unpredictable rainfall, prolonged droughts, flooding, declining soil health, water scarcity, rising production costs, and disrupted markets. Smallholder farmers, particularly women and young people, often carry the greatest burden despite having the least capacity to absorb these shocks. Climate resilience, therefore, must be understood not only as an environmental concern, but also as an economic and market imperative. It is not enough to help farmers to produce more if they cannot access reliable markets, affordable finance, appropriate technologies, quality inputs, extension services, or fair prices. Equally, a market system cannot be considered competitive if it depletes the natural resources upon which future production depends or excludes women, young people, and other underserved groups. At Micro Enterprises Support Program Trust, our experience has shown that sustainable transformation requires an integrated market systems approach, and this means strengthening the entire ecosystem around the farmer, improving access to finance, supporting climate smart production, developing commercially viable value chains, strengthening farm organizations and cooperatives, facilitating aggregation and market linkages, promoting digital solutions, and building partnerships between the public sector, private sector, academia, and development organizations. We must therefore move beyond treating farmers as beneficiaries and having farmers as partners in development, because they are producers, they're entrepreneurs, they're investors, and they're also essential market actors. And so as we commence this first ever webinar as a build up to the 2026 BDCG conference, I want to encourage all stakeholders therein to be able to be a part of this dialogue and this conversation that is looking towards strengthening resilient market systems and ensuring that we are able to really contribute to job creation and to ensuring that our market systems do not deplete the natural resources. And so today's webinar will move beyond describing the challenges and focus on practical lessons, scalable solutions, and stronger partnerships. We will ask ourselves what has worked, what has not worked, how can research and evidence better inform implementation, and how can we attract responsible private sector investment, and how can we ensure that successful approaches reach farmers at scale. At the end of this session, I hope we will have generated practical recommendations for strengthening climate resilient production systems and improving the functioning of markets for smallholder farmers. And more importantly, I hope today's engagement will lay the foundation for continued collaboration among all the partners within this webinar. And I'll be looking forward to continuing with this conversation during our 2026 annual conference that will be held in Mombasa between 24th to the 27th of November 2026 at the Pride Inn Hotel in Mombasa. Now, the complexity of Africa's food system means that no single organization can deliver transformation alone. Academia brings research and evidence, development organization brings implementation, experience, the private sector brings market investment and innovation, governments provide the policy and institutional environment, and farmers bring knowledge, enterprise, and lived experiences. Our collective strength lies in connecting these capabilities around a shared purpose. Therefore, on behalf of MEST, I reaffirm our commitment to working with all of you to build agricultural market systems that is inclusive, competitive, climate resilient, and capable of creating sustainable economic opportunities for Africa's farmers, especially women and young people. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the BDCG 2026 Annual Conference, 25th, 26th, 27th November 2026 at the Pride Inn Hotel, Mombasa. Thank you, and you're most welcome.
Much appreciated for that very important opening speech by our CEO of MEST, Rebecca Mkoy. Thank you very much for sustaining the vision of MEST to be the leading and preferred provider of resources for development of enterprises. So to capture the spirit in the letter from what Rebecca has said, I'll just like to quickly bring in our first flagship speakers. We have 5 of them. And we will begin straight away with our dear colleague from IDE Global, Dr. Geoffrey Nyamota. And your presentation will be uploaded just quite immediately. I believe, Rachel, very good. So Geoffrey is from IDE, International Development Enterprises Global, and is going to speak on one-to-many approach, an innovative model for providing services to smallholder farmers in rural Kenya. Dr. Geoffrey Nyamota, the floor is yours. Geoffrey, if you can hear me. Geoffrey, if you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Very well. Take it away.
Thanks, Prof, and thanks, Rebecca, for the great introduction of the conference and also the webinar that is happening now. I want to graciously say that IDE is one of the conveners of the BDCG, and I would like to start with a simple story that in 2020, July, when COVID issues or lockdown was opened in Kenya, I found myself in a very dry area in Ukambani in a place called Maliku, where I thought food could not grow. And having my business was to engage with an enterprise in the village that could work with us on a program to address post-harvest issues in Kenya. It was a rough ride, but today as we speak, this particular enterprise, now called Nzoki Enterprises, is actually offering services to smallholder farmers in her community. She started off with one technology, now with 10, and has moved her business to a level that you cannot imagine. So I would like to, in that context, to speak to ID Kenya's one-to-many approach, which is an innovative model for providing services to smallholder farmers in rural Kenya. And I would like, first of all, to start with explaining that IDE means International Development Enterprises. It's an international non-government organization with operations in 11 countries in Africa, Asia, and Central America. And one specific thing that we always do as IDE is to develop inclusive market ecosystems in various sectors, including agriculture, water and sanitation, and of course, entrenching what we call gender and social inclusion in all our programming. Here in Kenya, as IDE, we've been in operation since 2020. And one of the critical things that we've been doing is to test and scale climate-smart low-cost technologies that would help smallholder farmers offer services for the production, for the processing and value addition of various commodities, more especially the so-called staple foods and dairy products. And to that extent, I must say that the kind of work that we've done has really revolutionized how agribusinesses in the villages do their work. Next slide, please. As a context to my talk here, rural Kenya, the current population in Kenya is approximated to be about 57.5 million people. And when you look at what we call climate vulnerabilities, it is real. And these are really affected how food is produced and how it is saved and stored in various communities. And as a result of this, recent studies that we've done, we've found out that approximately 26% of approximately 2 million children suffer from malnutrition because of lack of availability of nutritious foods, which is occasioned by the fact that most of the food that is produced is actually lost to post-harvest issues because of like rains happening when farmers do not expect it to happen. And a couple of these that I'm explaining here actually happens especially in the Asarans and semi-arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya. And so for us as IDE to kind of revolutionize this, we devised an approach we refer to as a one-to-many approach, where we identify community members who are leaders in business that we take them through a process of vetting technologies, and once we've vetted those technologies, enabling those rural communities members, specific members, to access the technology through financing mechanisms that make it possible for them to actually access these technologies and repay in good time. Because remember, if you provided a technology to a villager in some place, if it's given out for free, you can be sure it will not be utilized. But if they participate in the actual procurement, they actually utilize that technology very well. And so as IDE, the first thing we do is to identify technologies that are suited for the processing of specific commodities. And once that has happened, is we place those technologies with relevant enterprises in the communities, train them thoroughly on safe utilization and proper maintenance systems to ensure that the technology is safely operated. And then, of course, make sure we have a connection between the suppliers of the technology and spare parts for the same to make sure that this enterprise engages the supplier in the event they want to buy a second and third and all like that technologies. And more importantly, we take these enterprises through trainings using those who have, who I would refer to as seasoned enterprises that have been operating their businesses and been very successful to mentor new ones into understanding and how they can run their businesses. We also train them on how to market their businesses digitally using Facebook, WhatsApp, and the other platforms like TikTok and the like. And you will come to learn that whether it's people in the village or people in town, digital marketing is real, and it's actually made many of the enterprises that we work with real access many farmers in their villages, and also access markets out of the village in Nairobi and elsewhere. The other thing that we also noted is access to finance for the rural people is kind of a challenge because they do not have collateral, and they also do not have proper records that will help them talk to financial institutions to convince them to access their loans to procure these technologies and other forms of technology that they would require. So in that context, what we do is we work with locally available SACCOs and other financial institutions that understand the requirements of the rural villagers to support them. And it actually worked that a majority of the enterprises that we've worked in excess of 200 have actually been able to borrow and procure the technology and utilized it, fully paid and borrowed a second time and a third time. And then after that, they're actually now able to buy the technology using the resources that they have generated. As a result of this, I must say that we have revolutionized how business happens here in Kenya. IDE has been able to reach in excess of 64,000 households, saving in excess of 2,100 tons of food, and of course, allowing enterprises to access resources from the services that they offer to smallholder farmers. In a nutshell, I would like to say that partnering, just like Rebecca put it, that we need to partner with farmers and agribusinesses. If we do that, then we actually enable them to thrive in their communities. As they make resources from what they do, they will also have an opportunity to carry on with the business beyond the life of any program that we implement. So I do welcome you to join us on the IDE website to try and understand how we operate and what we're able to achieve. And beyond that, I welcome collaboration between now and going into the future to make sure Kenya and other countries become a center of excellence in providing technologies for the purpose of addressing food loss with smallholder farmers in the various villages. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is very, very insightful, IDE, Dr. Nyamota. We are going to gather some questions to react to you in a short while. So just stay put. I'm sure people have questions to ask you, but I would like us to move straight away to our dear colleague, Meshach Sikuku from Ripple Effect, that will also give us a talk that will help us to understand the agricultural market systems in the view and in the eyes of ripple effect. Masha Shikuku, kindly. Welcome, please.
Thank you, Prof, and thank you, everybody. So, as you have heard, my name is Meshak Sikuku. I work with Ripple Effect as the Regional Farm Systems and Sustainability Coordinator. So I am happy to share with you how Ripple Effect is building resilient agriculture market systems in Africa. Now, briefly about Ripple Effect. Ripple Effect is an international NGO that works in 6 African countries. We work in Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Zambia. But basically, our work is to partner with the rural communities in Africa to improve food security, strengthen livelihoods, and build climate resilience. Our approaches are through 3 key pillars. So 1 is sustainable agriculture, 2 is gender and social inclusion, and finally is enterprise development. Those are our 3 main approaches by which we work with the communities around. So we are aware as Ripple Effect that market systems drive nutrition, drives jobs and incomes. I think it has been documented, if you read many documents, that agriculture alone forms like 30% of GDP in many of the African countries, including Kenya, where we are based. And all that is through the market systems, be it trade, be it local markets, be it sales, and so on. So production is the foundation of market systems. And that is also one thing that we believe, that without sustained production, market systems will suffer. Because if production is low, and then what we have is we will have ripple effect to other actors across the chain. We will have problems with aggregators because they will not aggregate enough to have enough returns. It will affect the processors. It will affect the suppliers, retailers, wholesalers. And finally, it is going even to hit hard on the consumers. And what we will see is what my colleague Nyamoto just said. Over 40% stunting, malnutrition. Those are the results of, dysfunctioning market systems. But we also recognize, and as Dr. Rebecca said, that we have weak market systems. They are vulnerable to climate, and that is what we are seeing. The indicators that we see, for example, very vulnerable price changes, in terms of food products, for example, is attributed to supplies, attributed to weak market systems, to vulnerable market system. So based on those 3 facts, that is where our actions are anchored, that if we can work on these 3, and then we will be good to go. Now, what are our actions? Now, as a ripple effect, in the countries that I have mentioned, we have quite a number of projects. We have close to 35 projects in those 6 countries. So please allow me not to refer to individual specific projects, but allow me to be much more general and top line in terms of the solutions that we're offering. So the first solution is promoting agroecological farming. Now, agroecological farming embraces a holistic kind of approach where we look at farming as interconnected system, and relations. Even when we look at the farm, all the components around the farm are tightly interconnected. When you are looking at crops, when we are looking at livestock, when we are looking at the soil, when we are looking at the trees, the biodiversity, all that, when we are looking at water resources, and most importantly, even farmers themselves, and the processes and the policies around there, that's a holistic approach to farming. So agroecology is one of the approaches that we work with farmers to ensure that they have adopted this agroecological farming. Now, science shows that 55% of life is attributed to soil. So if the soil is good, then life is good. All these interconnected elements within the farming system that I mentioned about we are well to go. But the bad thing or the unfortunate thing, just like Rebecca said, there is rampant depletion of soil, and the soils that our farmers are using are actually dead. And that is the beginning of problems. Now, soil health support plant growth. Soil health enable a thriving of microorganisms in the soil. It retains the moisture in the soil. Therefore, if we don't look at soil health, and then we are missing the point and we have problems. So in our approaches, and as we work with farmers, we focus more on scaling and supporting farmers to be able to farm agroecologically. Now, the second approach is strengthening farmer organizations, because we do believe that climate resilience is difficult to achieve individually. And I think Rebecca just mentioned that no single organization can deliver resilience alone. So we all need to come together. So in all our projects, our approach is to work with farmer groups, saving groups, farmer cooperatives, associations, because we believe that groups participate better in markets, they can lobby for better policies, it entrenches inclusion, but also it enables groups to participate better when it comes to markets. Our approach number 3 is farmer skilling and market linkages. Now, when we are talking about farmer skilling, we are talking about the capacity for farmers to be able to produce well, to be able to engage with the markets, to be able to know how to preserve, like the technologies that Dr. Nyamota was talking about. All those are technologies that we skill farmers around, be it post-harvest technology, be it, value addition of agriculture products to be able to make them have longer shelf life or be transported to market. So skilling and market linkages is very important. So we have used apprenticeship model to facilitate, including young people, to be able to get skills from experienced entrepreneurs. Finally, we have capacity of women and youth. Now, capacity of women and youth, we know that women produce a large share of Africa's food, but yet have limited access to resources. So what are we doing around this? We are working on cultural barriers through trainings. As ripple effects, when we mobilize groups, we don't just work with the groups who have mobilized. We work with if So a group member who is part of that group, who is part of the group we are working with, actually we loop in the whole family. If the wife, for example, is a member, we loop in the husband as well. So our trainings go also to the household, the remaining part of the household, or the remaining member of the household. So we work together through families, not individuals. And in this case, where we are including more men in the trainings, they have accepted that their wives can be good contributors to the household economy. And then we're also working with youth-focused enterprises, where we are looking at how can youth-focused enterprises, for example, enable them have the immediate problems such as lack of jobs, for example, and income, because that's the biggest problem for youth. So we have programs that are actually tailored towards, addressing the issue of youth, looking at how they can earn income, how we can create jobs, and that is how we are addressing the issue of capacity of women as well as youth. So those four actions are our general approaches that cut across all our projects. And what we have seen changes and transformation in terms of gender, in terms of income, in terms of nutrition. So thank you very much. For further details, you can go to our website, or you can contact us to have more detailed engagement with our respective programs. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Professor.
Wonderful. I like the name of the organization, Ripple Effect, and we are hoping that you have caught some ripples today so that colleagues can use some of your strength to continue to advance agroecology and agri-food system. To just catch up with you on what you have said, I will definitely want to bring in the next presenter, and I believe Farm Africa is ready. Yes, Farm Africa is ready. our dear colleague, who is the country director of Farm Africa Tanzania, is on board to share insights about how Farm Africa also participates in productive and resilient market systems. Thank you. David, karibu.
Asante sana, Prof. Can you hear me?
Very well, sir. Very, very well.
Thank you.
Please
so
proceed.
control the script. So I'll be presenting on how we are developing a market system by monetizing the soil carbon. Next. So who is Farm Africa? Farm Africa is a charitable organization. We work in partnership with smallholder farmers and also small businesses, and to unlock the transformative transformation in the agriculture sector. And we work around 3 themes in the agriculture, in promoting production and productivity and resilience, environment in terms of focusing on landscape management, and also priority on ecosystem and rangeland restoration. And then lastly, we intervene around market engagement. Next. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in the room understands that climate change, adaptation, and mitigation are the key challenges facing food production system in the region. And one of the biggest challenge which has been brought by climate change is the reduction in soil fertility. And this one has been accelerated by increased soil erosion from heavy rains, and that's mainly on floods. And as a result of heavy rains, there's depletion of the soil organic matter. And also, as a result of increasing temperatures, the microbial stability within the soils are being affected because they are not able to function to break down the organic matter into the soil carbon. So soil carbon is one of the chemical composition of the soil, and is usually used as a primary indicator of the soil health. So a soil which has low soil carbon, then it means that that soil has poor soil health, and therefore the soil fertility. So the soil carbon supports usually the soil the microbes, the microorganisms, but also the plants also requires the soil carbon. So that's the importance of that chemical composition of the soil. So how does soil carbon enters into the soil? How does carbon enters into the soil? So this is where we bring in the term carbon sequestration. This is a process whereby the carbon is being transferred from the atmosphere, and then it enters into the soil to form what we call the soil carbon. So increasingly, as a result of agriculture practices, the soil carbon is increased, and as a result of that, as a result of that action, we usually see improvement in the soil and in the environmental condition, and as a result, the improvement of soil carbon is associated with offsetting of emission of the greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So when the soil carbon is sequenced into the soil, we can be able to calculate the amount of soil carbon which has been sequenced, and then therefore monetize that and compensate the farmers who have invested in sequencing that soil into monetary terms, and be able to compensate them for the work which they have done. So that's what we call the monetization of the soil carbon. Next. So I will give a few examples here on how soil carbon has been sequenced and has been measured. In Eastern Kenya, Farm Africa, we partnered with the Downforce technology to monitor and to measure and monitor and also verify the changes in soil carbon. So Downforce technology has an AI programmed technology which is able to measure the amount of carbon using satellite imagery. So everybody knows that in normal way, you could go into the farm, take soil samples, and then you take the soil to the laboratory, and then you are able to measure the soil carbon. That's usually very tedious. It requires labor. It is quite expensive. But the Downforce technology, which is being used by Farm Africa, is faster. You can be able to track the soil carbon sequenced for the past 7 years in a particular community. Again, also you can be able to determine the soil carbon in a larger land surface. In Western Kenya, the VI agroforestry have been working with around 30,000 smallholder farmers in the dairy community. And they have been supporting them in adoption of practices which is able to bind the carbon dioxide into the soil while boosting milk production. So the amount of carbon which has been sequenced into the soil is usually measured based on carbon removal units. So that just like any other measurement units, if you measure the distance is kilometers, if you measure water is in liters, but now the amount of carbon which has been sequenced is measured in carbon removal units. So the carbon removal units represents the amount of carbon which has been sequenced into the soil. And there are a number of standards which have been approved to measure the amount of carbon which has been sequenced into the soil. These are like the verified carbon standards, which has been used by the VI agroforestry. Farm Africa has used the standard called Plan Vivo, and also there are also the standards called the gold standard. So all these standards are available, just like in vegetable production, you have the global gap certification. So for you to sell your product in Europe, then you have to be global gap certified. So also in soil carbon, for you to get compensation for soil carbon, then you have to be certified by those certifying bodies. Next. So this is an example of what we did in Embu and Tharaka Nithi, and you can see as a result of regenerative agriculture and also other interventions which enhance soil resilience and also soil fertility, the interventions have been able to increase the soil carbon. The one below shows the farms where Farm Africa was not intervening, and then the line above are the ones which have from the farmers where Farm Africa has been able to intervene. This shows that through climate resilient practices, regenerative agriculture, or agroecology practices, you are able to add organic carbon into the soil, which can be monetized, and therefore the farmers can be compensated for those initiatives. Next. So how do we monetize? How have we been able to monetize the soil carbon? VI agroforestry has been able to generate over 1 million CRUs through sustainable agriculture practices, and which is valued at around 30 million euros, of which approximately 24 million goes to the farmers. Again, also Farm Africa has been able to generate 24,500 CRUs with 1 million worth of income to the smaller farmers. On the graph on my left, it shows the number of farmers who have been impacted on, and also the CRUs which have been issued. Next. So let me come to the gist of the matter here. In the presentation I've made, VI agroforestry have been working with over 30,000 smallholder farmers. Farm Africa has been working with over 25,000 smallholder farmers. We know that there are examples of collective action in a market system that has been successful, especially with the tangible agriculture commodities, where smallholder farmers communities have been able to access market, gain bargaining powers, and that they are not able to achieve, which they are not able to achieve when they are doing that alone. In the carbon market, still there is individualistic access to the market. The smallholder farmers still don't have the voice which they are able now to negotiate for better terms at the market level. So in the context of soil carbon, virtual collection action, integrating digital platform and social networks can coordinate economic behaviors, lobby for systemic change that influence soil carbon supply, demand, and market rules. So can we, among the organization promoting soil carbon, bring the farmers together so that they can be able to collectively face the market and be able to benefit from the market itself? Because currently you find the people who are coming to assess the carbon the carbon sequenced into the soil. They do it independently, and then they relay the information to the farmers. So how can we bring these farmers to work in a market system so that their voice can be heard within that context? So there is potential for developing market system through carbon credits by creating economic structures at smallholder farmers level. Thank you very much.
Oh, that is very insightful. In fact, it's challenging. More insightful, it is challenging. And David, thank you very much for sharing those important perspectives on carbon credits and the potential for benefiting our smallholder farmers. I would just like to bring it straight away, knowing that we have questions later on, to our dear colleague, Dr. Christine Chege, Alliance Bioversity International and CIAT, to take it away from here. Christine.
Thank you very much, Prof. I hope you can hear me.
Very, very well. Please proceed.
Thank you. So as Prof has mentioned, I'm Christine Chege from the Alliance, and I lead the market system for healthy diet work. So next slide. So just a quick highlight on what is Alliance. So Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT, which is International Center for Tropical Agriculture, we are part of the CGIAR organizations. And we do research for development, broadly looking at issues that are going to transform food systems. And we harness agricultural biodiversity to transform food system. We address issues to do with livelihoods, environmental challenges, nutrition challenges, climate challenges. And at the intersection of agriculture, nutrition, and environment, really, this is our key focus, because whatever we are doing within the agri-food system connects agriculture, nutrition, and environment. So the nexus of these three comes in very strongly within our work. And most important also is the leverage. Previous slide, please. Previous slide, please. So most of the work we do, also we try to see how can we transform, how can we use the local knowledge of the people we are working with, combine that with science to transform food systems. And we work across 7 key areas, what we call the programs within our alliance, within our organization. The first one is around food environment and consumer behavior. We have issues on multifunctional landscape, everything to do with climate action, agrobiodiversity, digital inclusion coming in very much as a cross-cutting component, and then crops for nutrition and health. And finally, gender, youth, and social inclusion also comes in as a cross-cutting agenda. So we work globally, and we have our regional Africa office in Kenya, where I sit, and then our Asia office is in Vietnam, Latin and Central America office is in Cali, and the HQ is in Rome. So for us, when we look at a market system, especially from our docket under the food environment and consumer behavior, we put a lot of emphasis on how can market systems deliver nutritious foods to consumers. So we start from the consumer end, and we look within the market system to see what are the challenges that need to be addressed. What are the issues that fall within the market system that need to be addressed to bring that nutritious food to the consumers. Here I just put some highlights on 2 key, very recent findings from SOFI report, that's the Status of Food and Nutrition Security Report 2026, which shows that 26% of the global population is still food insecure. And 2.7 billion people cannot afford a healthy diet, of which in Africa, it's every 2 out of 3 people. So 2 out of 3 people cannot afford a healthy diet. This still remains a big, big challenge. And I join my colleagues from IDE and Ripple Effect, who have also been emphasizing on the importance of nutrition and addressing malnutrition challenges using market system approach. So there are several other approaches, challenges, of course, especially when we look at the market system. We also have big challenges in terms of environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, food loss and waste, and climate change. And that's where we see market system can actually be, if well used or designed and also implement collaboratively, like we were told in the introductory session, we can be able to address multiple challenges within the food system, not only environmental, not only climate issues, but also nutrition challenges. Next slide, please. So you'll see a lot of my emphasis again coming in with regard to healthy diets and sustainable future, because we connect the healthy diet and sustainability. And I want to put a lot of emphasis on these two, because we always feel these are the pieces which are left out. So when we talk of market system for healthy diets and sustainable future, we then want to show that market system can actually bring out multiple outcomes. Many of the people usually look at market system for the poor or for, improving livelihoods and incomes, but then we are working a lot on market system to bring out better diets for better livelihoods, differently, to bring out employment and job creation for the businesses and people, especially small vendors, small businesses who are supplying food to consumers, including in the vulnerable areas, like in the low income areas, like in the slums, again, which are quite left out most of the time. Issue of sustainability and environmental impacts also still come out very strongly, and these are part of outcomes that market system always can deliver on. And in terms of how we see usually these ones are being achieved, again, it's working a lot on improving efficiencies and market linkages, which we work a lot on. How do we strengthen the market linkages within the market system to ensure that we reduce the transaction cost so that the foods that are reaching the consumers are actually affordable to the consumer. So it's the issue of access, issue of availability, affordability, but also desirability of those foods in terms of how the foods are presented to the consumers. Issues of food safety come in strongly. We may do a lot of production, a lot of marketing, but then the food gets to the consumers when it is contaminated. And we say when it is contaminated, if it's not safe, it is not nutritious. So we strongly look at the aspect of also food system within the market system. We look at how you can reduce food loss and waste within the market system, because we want to ensure that the food that is produced at the farm level, marketed through the different market actors, can actually be consumed by the target consumers and not lost within the market system. Sustainable consumption also comes in strongly, and the aspect of financing, which I'll mention in the next, I think, second slide. And finally, the aspect of circularity and circular bioeconomy within the market system. We bring this together to show that actually this can be able to bring in sustainable production, sustainable consumption, and improve the diets of the consumers. Next slide, please. So just to give some highlights here on some of the examples, again, these are just two examples I'm highlighting here, like some examples of some projects we've been working on and aiming to achieve improved diets. We have a number of projects across different countries that are working on market linkages, again, to reduce transaction costs along the market system, linking production and consumption. Then we have a lot of innovations at the food environment. Again, food environment is quite forgotten when we talk of market system. Yet food environment is the intersection where consumers will have access to this food that is being produced. So we do work a lot on food environment innovations with the vendors, the small vendors in the markets, the larger vendors and the distributors, building the capacity of these market actors. For example, in the case of the business operations, in terms of food safety, nutrition awareness, but also linking with the consumers, because the food may get to the market, but then the consumers don't know what they need to consume or even purchase. And at the end of it also, we look at innovations that can reduce food loss and waste along the entire chain. Then in terms of sustainable production, and sustainable consumption, we've been working a lot on agroecological production and consumption of agroecologically produced foods. I'll not emphasize on that. I think the colleague from, was it IDE or Ripple Effect, that really talked quite a bit on agroecology. But we do a lot of work on agroecology, looking at how agroecologically produced commodities can also be linked to consumption, because at the end of the day, it needs to be consumed. Circularity, a lot of food is produced, but then what are the innovations to reduce this food that has been produced, to reduce food loss that has been produced, so that the food can actually get to the consumers? And we are looking at working very closely with the food bank in Kenya. We look at some innovations like the food banking innovations. The food can be repurposed and reconsumed by consumers without it going to waste. Issues like, for instance, circular bioeconomy. How do we develop business models? How can business models be developed to come up with designs of projects and programs that help to produce organic fertilizer or organic animal feeds that can be used by the different businesses. Instead of this food that has been wasted being dumped to produce methane, the food that has been already gone to waste can actually be used to produce organic fertilizer, and this goes back to the soil. So we have better soils, better production, and better food for our consumers. I think that's the end. Thank you very much. Last line. Thank you very much for this.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. And we are privileged as Pwani University to collaborate with the Alliance on the food banking and also the waste to wealth. These are great innovations in the bioeconomy, circular bioeconomy, and for that matter, the right person to bring on now is one of our flagship presenters. We had 5 flagship speakers today, and we have the great privilege to bring in Dr. Raphael Popper of Warsaw University of Technology. Popper, take it away.
Thank you. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. And we can hear you too. Please proceed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's see. Is it in presentation mode already?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. So let's see if it's working. Yes. So thank you very much for this invitation and for creating the space to share some reflections on the role of sustainable bioeconomy principles in enabling just and resilient transition. I think this presentation resonates very much with the previous speakers. Here, the key word is principles, right? Because being bio-based does not automatically make an activity sustainable, right? So what matters is how biological resources are produced, used, and regenerated, how value and benefits are distributed among the multiple stakeholders, and how ecosystems and biodiversity are affected. So whose voices are shaping the decisions and whether the resulting systems become more resilient, just and sustainable over time. So CasiBio is a new initiative that essentially is about turning those sustainability principles into practice, right? What we are facing now and what we think it's particularly relevant to this conversation is that the today's theme is about climate resilient and competitive agricultural markets systems in Africa, but this narrative and this type of topics are very relevant for the global bioeconomy. So in CasiBio, a new Horizon Europe project, we're building on more than a decade work. We are not starting from scratch. So we started with the European Framework Program 7. The CASI project developed a framework, the CASI Framework for Sustainable Innovation and Governance, that was built on a growing knowledge infrastructure that we call Casipedia, a bit like a Wikipedia back then, but focus on sustainable innovations. And here we experimented with regional transformation approaches. In CasiBio, we take that accumulated experience further. We expanded, we focused on bioeconomy, and our ambition is simple. Basically, we would like to have shared principles in different contexts, not only in Europe, also in Africa, and Kenya is our hub in Africa. We are hoping to mobilize 2 or 3 more African countries. So if we have other participants from other African countries, please get in touch with Professor Rewe, who has been our champion in Kenya and in Africa regarding this, in order to achieve coordinated transformation. And perhaps most importantly, we do not want projects that simply finish at the end of the funding. Like CasiBio is a continuation, so we want to build systems that help us to continuously learn and to continuously adapt. What it is important to recognize here is that CASI Bio is an initiative where we have 15 partners across 14 countries and 4 continents. I have been recently traveled in the last month to 3 Asian countries, to China, to Malaysia, and to Singapore, and soon I will be visiting Thailand. So there is a strong interest as well to expand the CASI Bio methodology and principles to Asia too. But in the project, we promise we will be actively working in 4 continents. And basically, we will be jointly co-creating and co-designing or strengthening existing living labs, 13 of those, 10 living labs in Europe, 1 living lab in Kenya, and 1 living lab in Latin America and in Uruguay, and then New Zealand as well. In total, there will be a number of 182 or more sustainable innovations, similar to the ones that were mentioned by the previous speaker, innovations in food systems and many other agricultural and bioeconomy, also marine bioeconomy. Why 182? Because we have 13 living labs, and at least in each of these living labs, there will be 14 innovation cases maps. So 13 times 14, that's 182. And this will be further developing our already powerful, I would say, and very rich Casipedia database, where we have at the moment more than 700 cases of sustainable innovations, because Casi Bio builds on the Casi platform that was built in the previous Casi project. So in total, we will be certifying 500 plus multipliers of those principles and applying them in different contexts and different living labs through the academy. And so universities play an important role in the project. And for each of the living labs, we will be co-creating 13 roadmaps, action roadmaps, to help shape national, regional, and EU bioeconomy strategies. All in all, futures thinking applied means that the framework, CASI-F, and Casipedia 2.0, with the help of AI, and in collaboration with other initiatives we have built over the years with the University of Milano Bicocca in Italy. We co-created the Bolero platform to support regional development and bioeconomy in Lombardia, in Milano region. So we are creating a network which we think this bioeconomy knowledge to impact engine will scale, right? So this is more or less the logic around it. In Kenya, we will be also designing and implementing very soon CASI Bio Living Lab. And we will be turning local realities into global relevant evidence, learning, and transition. So Kenya is not a test site. It's a co-creator of globally relevant bioeconomy intelligence knowledge. We will be sharing principles, we will be gaining value, and this will be helping us to adapt lessons and to enrich our knowledge base for local realities. So global principles become meaningful in local realities, and local realities in turn make global principles stronger. So we will be starting from reality. We will be soon visiting potentially the November event that you were mentioning before might be a good platform for us to do the launching, the kickoff meeting in Kenya, and start co-creating different type of knowledge to bring actors together with the help and the leadership of Kwani University and the whole CASI Bio will be engaging different type of communities, researchers, businesses, and public actors in defining challenges. We will be experimenting. We will be testing the principles that we will be positioning into practice with the help of the living labs, exploring the resilience, the inclusion, the cascading use, the food first approaches, and ecosystem protection under real conditions. And then we move into the learning mode. We will be learning from each of the 13 living labs, identifying lessons that are cross-cutting ways in which lessons from Africa can also be transferred to Europe and vice versa under different conditions, what needs to change when principles travel across different contexts. And last but not least, very important is transformation, to turn those local learning and global lessons to help to feed the Kenyan experience into comparative analysis, to support foresight initiative, policy roadmaps, mutual learning across Europe. So this slide is kind of like in a nutshell, summarizing what we are doing in Kenya. Now, there's plenty that we can talk about, but time is one challenging. We will be organizing a dedicated workshop soon in Kenya. This slide is basically illustrative to show that we are addressing bioeconomy from a very holistic perspective. There are 7 tracks. We are looking at circular agri-food systems and food first, like we have been discussing by the previous speaker, but also taking into account other tracks such as forest-based bioeconomy and cascading use, socially just and inclusive transitions. Resilience will be an important aspect under climate stress. We have witnessed an increasing number of climate events shaking, not only shaping, but shaking the resilience and the capacity of bioeconomy ecosystems to adapt. Marine and coastal bioeconomy is another track. Biointelligent regions, digital integration, and last but not least, urban and industrial bioeconomy innovations. Those 7 tracks are not coming from out of the blue. They are actually part of a careful and meticulous analysis that we did, theoretically based on sustainability transition theory, on social ecology and resilience theory, on environmental justice and just transition frameworks, as well as governance and innovation system theory. So all in all, there will be different contexts, 10 European countries plus 3 non-EU in different continents. We will be comparing different learnings and sharing transformation. Now, we have not designed something to test or to pilot it for the first time. We have, in fact, demonstrated through different type of projects. One of them was in Uruguay, that we have applied this methodology, the Living Labs approach, on forest-based bioeconomy areas track, where we look into details of forest management, mechanical wood processing, fiber-based biomaterials processing, biorefining, bioenergy, where we mobilize multiple actors in a large conference and organize a workshop similar to what we're planning to do in November when we do the official kickoff of Kasi Bio in Kenya. And then we identify through desk research, interviews, expert surveys, hundreds of critical issues. In Uruguay, we identified 322, which we clustered around 15 critical policy issues, and then we transform this into opportunity pathways that we call opportunity areas, and we check the Factiva data analysis, how the industry is investing in different areas. Then we organize multiple stakeholder workshops, the Global Value Network. We understood the research, education, innovation, and regulation needs, and we created a robust set of 15 opportunity pathways that were, in a way, linked to a shared vision that we also co-created with multiple stakeholders, and around this, a number of action roadmaps. This slide is quite rich in terms of details, but the purpose of putting it into the presentation is to get you the idea that we have gone through this journey already in Uruguay. We have co-created over 500 actions, and many of these actions are being, at the moment, under implementation. So the Living Labs are seen as systems, not as sites. And you can see in a very rich as well, content-wise, I believe the slides will be distributed. Here you see some kind of traffic light on the right with a lot of the bubbles that I was mentioning before with the 15 roadmaps and the 500 recommendations. Many of these roadmaps are in green. So 6 of them are in green, meaning that they are on track in order to achieve the vision, the shared vision by 2050. Some of them are in yellow, so meaning substantial progress has been achieved, but maybe the success scenario, the vision by 2050, might not be achieved. It doesn't mean that we are not going to get there. It means that we might be getting a bit later, by 2060 perhaps. And red means 3 of them out of the 15 are in red because they require, for example, multilateral organizations and businesses, large foreign direct investment efforts, and private public-private partnerships. So all in all, the 13 living labs will follow these 5 bundles approaches of A, B, C, D, E that you see there on the slide. So we will be first scoping the living labs, then co-creating the toolbox, then piloting and monitoring, then we move into synthesis, and finally into a dissemination and dialogue with the stakeholders in order to test sustainability in reality, not in abstraction. This is why we have the living labs. And this is something that has been already discussed and codified. So if you would like to understand more the methodology, you can scan this QR code, and we published a paper this year where the CASIE framework, the common framework for the assessment and management of sustainable innovation, is described in detail in Foresight and STI Governance Journal. So the journey is codified, and we are customizing it and tailoring to each of the living labs. To get to the end of my short intervention here, we're moving from principles to transformation, and capabilities matter. So one of the capabilities that is important to take into account in order to achieve transformation is to circularize, to use resources wisely. Circular bioeconomy and resource infrastructure turns cascading use, resource efficiency, and circularity into functioning value systems. Next is adaptation, to build resilience. So bioeconomy, resilience, and adaptive systems is very important capability, and we would like to reinforce this. Then co-governing, transform together with people, participatory governance and stakeholder engagement. Then localize, this is why we have the living labs across 4 continents to make transition place-based. And then anticipation, use evidence to look ahead. Sustainability, foresight, and evidence intelligence will combine research, and we will be stress testing and anticipating risk and guide action. So the principles will guide us. Then the capabilities that we will be building through the academy will enable us, and then the living labs will show us what works. So in order to conclude, I think there are multiple capabilities that will be promoted. The project has just started. Just a few weeks ago, we had the online kickoff, and the actual physical kickoff is happening in October. And then what we are going to do very soon is to transferring and creating bridges with another initiative, an Erasmus Plus project that I'm honored to coordinate, a skill bridge, where we have identified 25 capability areas under 4 capability diamonds. The first one is foresight and futures intelligence, and we believe that 5 of those capability areas are very relevant to CASI-Bio, complex systems and transformation dynamics, sustainability futures and environmental transitions, and so on. Then we have as well the AI and deep tech systems capability diamond, and data analytics will be used heavily in CASI-Bio. We will be bringing together different databases using modeling, simulation, scientific and computing, and looking at responsible AI governance and risk to make sense of different transformations that are happening across the 13 living labs. Multiple data sources will be there. And then innovation and entrepreneurship. Previous speakers talked about the importance of understanding system dynamics and the markets. And looking systemically requires responsible and sustainable innovation capabilities, innovation processes. System thinking was also mentioned by previous speakers, and market intelligence to understand what are the opportunities ahead, as well as the risks to build resilience and adaptability. And last but not least, we have the sustainability diamond. The capability areas here are very much focused on bioeconomy, circular bioeconomy and resource infrastructure, agroecology, a core theme of this webinar, bio-based production, bioeconomy resilience, and so on. So no single capability delivers transformation. This is the key message of this slide. Resilient bioeconomies emerge when we blend this foresight, the anticipatory governance and intelligence, the innovation and the sustainability when they work together. And my Closer to my last slide, towards the conclusions, I would like to share with you some very important aspects that we are going to address during the life of the project. A bioeconomy is not sustainable because it is bio-based, one of my introductory remarks. It is sustainable when value creation respects people, ecosystems, and future options, future generations. The test is whether benefits are shared. The trade-off are visible and vulnerable interests are protected. So protection is a key element. Secure the rights and safeguard future generations, protect the land, the water, the resources. In addition, sharing distributed value fairly, so to track who gains, who are the winners, and who bears the cost, how benefits are shared, and whether jobs are decent, safe, and locally meaningful. And another element of this aspect of justice and resilience is participation. We give people real agency, not just engaging them at the end of the process to confirm whether our results are accepted or not, but to engage them, the so-called smallholders, not only the so-called big stakeholders, the communities, the women, the youth, engage them early enough. This is what we hope to do in November when we meet physically, to set some priorities to help us make some choices and implementation. But it's also important to focus on balance, to have the right balance, to manage competing demands, to stress test food, biomass, water, biodiversity, and land use, the trade-off before scaling. So we need to assess everything that I mentioned before we scale, with food security and ecosystem integrity as hard constraints. And last, adaptation. We need to learn. We need to see what works. We need to see what we need to correct. If we need to correct course before scaling, so we need to use indicators, so data analytics, AI will support us to bring together the intelligence from all the living labs, monitoring to identify unintended effects, potential weak signals that can lead to wildcards, but also to identify opportunities and to compare the outcomes to adjust our policy. So justice asks for whom we're doing this. Resilience asks under what conditions, and sustainability is the big picture that requires answering both before we scale. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Raphael. We've just gotten our first character development. That 1 hour is never enough for such a power-packed webinar. We wanted to hear more from all the flagship speakers from IDE Global, from the Ripple Effect, from Farm Africa, from Alliance Biodiversity International here, and also from the Warsaw University of Technology, Poland, from the CASI Bio coordinator, Dr. Raphael Popper. Colleagues, we are way on top of our time, but I know you have questions. I would just like to get indulgence from the chair, whether we can extend this a little bit for some questions to be answered. We had questions that had already been programmed for some of these presenters. So Rachel, I'll just request the chair of the BDCG to say something, and if he gives us permission before he closes the session, we can extend it for just about 10-15 minutes for the presenters to answer 1 or 2 questions. Chairman, Dr. Victor Ndiege, if you are in, please, you can say something if you're going to permit the session to continue for a few more minutes.
Thanks, panelist. Thanks, moderator. I think I would give that chance for the audience to ask questions. Then I will make one statement closing remarks after that. So if we keep it to 10 minutes, I think should be sufficient to get questions. Thank you.
Very well. I see some questions here. So I'll just start with IDE Global. I'll just pick one so that we can save time. Bwana Nyamota, please let us know from the one-to-many models that you're using, which combines technology, business support services, tailored financing. Among these approaches, which of these components has been most critical to sustained adoption among smallholder farmers particularly in Kenya and in arid and semi-arid areas. Dr. Nyamota, please.
Thanks, Prof, and thanks everyone who has been presenting. I would like to say it this way, that not one of the innovations alone actually makes it succeed. Remember, you need technology, and it's within the technology that you build your business. And financing is also critical. And from what I've also seen a question here that is also wondering, are there potential opportunities for collaboration in terms of access to finance? So one thing I must say is most of the rural enterprises cannot access bank financing. That was one of the critical things that we identified. And so we sought to work with SACCOs, and for sure, the SACCO loans in terms of interest rates, reasonable enough, and time for processing worked well. And so for me, what I would say is the three of them work together. Financing is very critical, but of course, also getting the right technology and being guided in how to market and run the business the right way is what I would say has made it work and work well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. I wish we had more time. It's very interesting engaging you guys. Meshach, you brought in a very strong aspect of ripple effect and how it works with smallholder farmers. And is there a model in which you are using? How do we ensure that agroecological production remains commercially competitive? It has been argued that when we're focusing on food security, there are some practices that might not secure us in terms of food production. Tell us, how do we ensure that agroecological production remains commercially competitive and deliver reliable incomes to our small farmers? Meshach.
Thank you, Prof. I think in my presentation, I did mention that we have a challenge already. And the challenge we have is that our soils are already dead. And that is where we are fixed. So if we continue producing on dead soils, we can't produce anything. And that is where the argument that agroecological production cannot sustain food supplies. Yes, it cannot because we're already in a problem. But agroecological farming has to be a process of transition. It has to be a process of transition because regenerating soil does not take 1 week or 6 months. It takes time for soil health to build up. Unfortunately, that is not what we are thinking about. What we are thinking about mostly is how to subsidize fertilizer and put fertilizer. And that will put us in a big fix, because if we have a case whereby this fertilizer is not even subsidized the way many governments in Africa are doing that, then farmers will be in shit. But I'm looking at the commercial viability of agroecological farming in 3 perspectives. One, it can significantly reduce the cost of production, because we are looking at how do we produce with the minimal external input. So do we produce with nature or we continue producing synthetically? That's the question we need to interrogate around. And then a commercial viability perspective 2 is I'm looking at diversification. In itself is a climate resilience practice. So if farmers diversify, and then they are able to be climate resilient, because if drought comes and one crop is wiped out, and then the other enterprises may survive. Finally, is about resilience itself, because like I talked about soil, if you have good soil that retains water, biodiversity, you have the resilient farms, then those farmers are more able to produce a little bit more even in drier or bad conditions as opposed to the business as usual. Thanks.
Thank you. Asante sana, Meshach. Yeah, I know this conversation must continue because that argument about commercial viability has been a thorn in the flesh of the agroecological movement. But you are very right. Soil health is a policy issue. It's long-term, and it has permanent benefits. I want to bring in your colleague, David, who brought in money. He brought money to farmers, and he said that we can sell carbon credits. So with these soil carbon projects, they depend on credible measurements and verification. How can the cost and technical complexity of determining carbon removal units be reduced without compromising integrity, particularly for dispersed smallholder farmers? Because this is quite an issue. David?
Yes, Prof. In my presentation, I had alluded to two methodologies which are used for assessing the soil carbon. One through AI-driven technology by downforce technologies, and then the other one which is quite manual, where you go to the farm and take soil samples and go to the lab and measure the amount of soil carbon which has been sequenced into the soil. So those two the answer to your question lies within those two technologies. Adoption of technologies which can reduce the costs at the farm level. If you look at the normal soil sampling and testing, it will take ages for you to take almost 1,000 hectares of land. But with downforce technology, you can be able to measure 5,000 hectares within a very short time. That means that the cost will be reduced, and therefore the farmers will be able to generate more income from the carbon credits. But against all this, the success lies on how can we incorporate the smallholder farmers to participate in the adoption of these technologies. How can we build a collective action at farmer level where the farmers can be able to use these technologies to measure the soil and then relay the data to the standards people who are able to now to calculate the CPUs. So that's the basis for reduced cost, Prof.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you. There are people in the participants list that want to engage because you are bringing in a new income stream, and that is so essential. So I hope they will engage with David, colleagues. You are representing smallholder farmers, if you are one. Christine, you highlighted food banking and circular bioeconomy models that convert organic waste into fertilizer and animal feed, or even repurposing the food. Yeah, how can these models be made commercially viable and gender responsive, as you say, and which indicators should be used to demonstrate that they are simultaneously improving diets, livelihoods, and environmental outcomes? There are so much measurements going on here, Christine. What can you say about that?
Thanks, Prof. Thanks. That's a heavy question. Yes. Thank you. I'll try to tackle it quickly. I know we are already over time. So when you think of the what needs to be done, first of all, I know we're already implementing some of the projects actually collaboratively with Pwan University and other partners. What we find in the field is that when you're talking with the youth groups about these business models, they're wondering, how can you make money out of organic waste? Like, it's already a waste. Why don't you just throw it in, the dump sites? So the awareness of actually these business opportunities, not many people are aware of these business opportunities. So capacity building comes in strongly in terms of building capacity of targeted groups of people, for instance, youth, women, and people who are business minded, to really come together and get empowered on how can you generate revenues, how can you generate a livelihood from these waste. As you generate a livelihood, you are also saving the environment, you are improving nutrition for people. So capacity building comes in strongly there. The other aspect is the issue of developing marketing strategies. Once you have these products in place, yes, they have developed the products. Where are they taking them? Who is buying them? Do the buyers know that they exist? So designing marketing strategies that can be able to take these products to people who, when they are informed about them, they can actually purchase them. And here the target is the farmers, because the farmers are the ones who are going to use these organic fertilizers and animal feed. Then another thing that comes to my mind is about how do you design those business models? Who is the target beneficiary in terms of the business actors, the users, thinking about the whole model and then designing that model with the aspect of this is a business. So that is very, very important. And finally, the aspect of financing comes in strongly. And someone asked about financing. So financing is really, really important. It can be financing in terms of the small finances that people, business actors can access, can be bigger finances in terms of loans from the bank, partnerships, collaboration, grants, different types of financing. Gender responsiveness comes in here importantly because you don't want to cause harm by not being inclusive, especially for women, for youth. So as we design these kind of business models, we need to have women in mind, youth in mind, and design business models that are actually inclusive for women, keeping in mind that if you want the waste to be collected, how will the women play what role within those business models? And they have so many roles to play. And what is the ownership of these women? What is their role? How do they, it's not just them being involved, but also being in charge of the incomes that are coming from those businesses. So you need to ensure that you also empower them so that they are in charge and they can take control and contribute to the use of those finances. And also, as we think of the financing options also that we are designing need to be considerate of the women as well. Yeah. And finally, in terms of the indicators you asked, just to mention two indicators. So when you design everything and you want to say, okay, is our business model improving nutrition? So you can look at for example, for nutrition issues like dietary diversity, are people consuming more nutritious foods that have been safely produced at the farm level with less chemicals because now maybe they are agroecologically produced through use of these organic inputs. So dietary diversity, access to safe, nutritious foods, and availability of these foods also is some of the indicators we can look at. And livelihood, of course, it's incomes for the business actors, reduction of input use by the farmers, and environmental indicators. For example, you can think of greenhouse gas emission reduction, because now we are not going to dump our organic waste in Dandora or in Thika. We are going to dump our waste through recycling and produce useful resources. So we will have less methane emissions, and we are going to have less organic waste in those dump sites. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And you are linking very well with David, so you can work together so that you give us money from carbon credits.
Thank you.
Last but not least, I was really taken by the presentation by Dr. Raphael Popper, and we would like to know, because the bioeconomy strategies as they are becoming quite centralized in policy in different places, but they can create new markets that we know and strengthen climate resilience. But one thing they will do, of course, is to create competition for land, water, and biomass. How can African countries in this context manage these trade-offs while protecting food security, biodiversity, and vulnerable communities? Dr. Popper. You can unmute, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Yes, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a critical issue that we'll be addressing from the very beginning of CASI Bio. So I'm very pleased that you're asking this. A useful starting point is to make the trade-off visible and to recognize that there are trade-offs, right? So, and then first we need to apply a food first principle. So bioeconomy growth should not undermine access to affordable and nutritious food. So this should be kind of like our starting point. I believe so. We will be, of course, discussing it with the whole consortium. Second, use cascading biomass use, I think prioritizing higher value, resource efficient uses, and recovering value from residues and waste must be there, right? A third point will be stress testing decisions against land, water, biodiversity, climate, and livelihood impacts. Okay, so we need to include as well who benefits and who bears the cost. And then fourth principle, or these choices locally and adaptively. So we need to mobilize the farmers, the communities, the businesses, the researchers, and public authorities. So the objective here is not to pretend that trade-off can disappear or will disappear. It is actually, it is to identify them early, to govern them early and fairly, So we need to avoid locking in pathways that weaken food security, ecosystems, and vulnerable communities. So there are many examples of how these four main points, the food first, the cascading use, and the stress testing decisions, as well as the local and adaptive governance, will be taken into account in each of the living labs. Of course, there are multiple aspects around the bioeconomy. Each living lab will select one or two tracks of the seven that I mentioned, and we will be prioritizing each of those four that I mentioned. So I think the same bioeconomy investment can be sustainable in one Kenyan country and harmful, for example, in another bioeconomy. So it will depend on water, land, livelihoods, and local governance. And we need to make sure that we are not copy-pasting solutions from Europe to Africa, Latin America, and New Zealand, or vice versa. So we need to recognize the local context, the needs, the governance, the infrastructure needs, the ecosystem needs, and then how do we can extrapolate, if we can, or learn from each of these multi-continent type of approaches, the living labs, the 13 living labs, and ultimately, when we go to the granular aspects of innovation, from the 180 plus innovations, because we would like to also understand the different type of business models and how do they operate in different ecosystems, innovation ecosystems that we will have. We have different innovation ecosystems in Europe and Latin America than in New Zealand and in Africa. So we need to adapt. So it's not only adapting to the living labs themselves and to the different policy environments and the innovation policy ecosystem, but also the entrepreneurial landscape and the relationship with multiple stakeholders, the public engagement, the farmers, and different type of conditions. And I think that's the beauty of CASI-Bio.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I know we'll have more discussions going forward. We are looking forward to the side event that will be taking place at the BDCG Symposium 2026 to kick off CASI-Bio in Kenya and in Africa. Thank you, Dr. Popper. I would like to bring in the chair of the BDCG network, who is the host and convener for the BDCG 2026, Dr. Victor Ndiege. As I bring him in, kindly let everyone put on their video so that we can be ready for one snapshot by Rachel for purposes of recording this important webinar. So everyone, you can just put on your video as the chair comes in. Victor, the floor is yours to close this session.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. And thanks everyone for joining, all the participants for joining this session. As Rebecca said in the morning, this is just a first of the many webinars that we will hold towards the build-up to the conference in November. And we still welcome you to join us as we progress with this. As the chair of the BDCG Council, I also want to thank the panelists for, talking to us about some of the matters that we actually have interacted with, but may not have recognized the depth and their contribution into our everyday life. So for me, that is the most important aspect, that everybody and everyone leaves this session knowing very well how we need to progress as a collaboration. So, we want to position BDCG as one of the very effective platforms in trying to bring learning, trying to bring field experiences, trying to bring research experiences and academic experiences to the table so that we can have transformative solutions towards not only climate change, but addressing many of the humanity challenges that confront us today. So most importantly, we will continue to interact with various stakeholders. I want to mention that we are also in the process of growing the network. So members and participants who have joined today, who are not already members of the network, we welcome you to join the network. In addition to interesting you to be part of the conference in November. Another aspect that I want to conclude with is that to positively scale impact, we've got to act in a more collaborative manner. So this is just recognizing the fact that as institutions or as individuals, we have different strengths that can actually contribute to more scalable solutions, not only in the market, but also, you know, across different spectrums. I know when we sometimes talk about the market, our minds run to private sector, but we want to demystify the fact that markets is a combination of all actors for purposes of transforming humanity. So that's what we want to look at in the entire aspect. So thank you very much, and thank you again for joining us. We welcome you for the subsequent sessions. Stay tuned. Back to you, moderator. If you don't have any more, I want to confirm from you if the photo is already taken. If it is, then this statement then marks the last of the webinar today.
Rachel, confirm that, please.
Yes, maybe we could all just smile to the camera, wave as I take a photo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, great. So bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye.